Hello, Strips here again. So today I'll be doing a kind of a deep dive into my experiences at the Kansas City Planetary Qualifier that was held at the Mission Board Games. One of their locations. They've got two stores in Kansas City. Great event, fun event. Obviously, I did not win with this list. I ended up going 4-3 with this particular build. But I'll kind of go over each of my matchups. So maybe a little bit more pertinent today for someone who might be thinking of running a list, this list or a list like this. Into their PQ, or also for people who maybe haven't played against an Obi-Wan deck and might want to know what the other person is thinking as they face off against there. So this event was held I think like 2 days ago as I'm recording this, so I'm trying to get it in as quick as I can, just while some of it's still fresh in my brain, but I also haven't had like a whole lot of time to kind of like sit here and kind of like pour over it, just because I've been busy. So I might change my mind a little bit about some of that or changes and stuff to the deck going forward. But we'll kind of cover that as we go forward. I've put a little... Let's see if I can use my cursor to kind of circle over here. This was the original meta breakdown from the very first Kansas City Planetary Qualifier, which I ran Hantu Blue at and went 4-3 on that date. But really that was like my first competitive card game event ever. This will be my second, so it's not like I've got like a whole ton of experience. I was really just trying to do like as good as I did last time, at least go 4-3 if I could, and up from there, like, if I can do better, I can do better. But this big blue chunk is Boba at the time. I've messaged the owner of the store, Mason, I believe, who I've asked for the breakdown. I think he provided this breakdown last time, but maybe hasn't gotten to it yet for this qualifier, so I might update this section because I'm probably going to record some of this tomorrow, depending on the matchup and how long I can go, because I want to, give you a good, deep analysis into some of this. So I'll update this and talk about that if I can and cut this part out, but if I don't, just because I think it's kind of like pertinent to what was kind of happening this weekend with this deck and why I kind of performed the way that I did at 4-3. I mean, you're kind of running a list that you think will be good into like the things that you're expecting to see. And if, you're maybe going to a city that you're unfamiliar with, or, you don't really like know a local meta, you're just trying to take a list that you think will be good into the field that you expect. And, just based on past planetary qualifiers, I was expecting Han 1 yellow, like at least one of those, which I did not see a single one of. I was expecting Cad Bane red. Did not see any of those. I saw one of those at the first PQ. And I was expecting Jango Tarkentown. Quinlan Tarkentown, which I did see and beat pretty handily, which we'll go into when we go into that match, but those kinds of decks. And so, I don't know if I potentially just managed to dodge all of the Han yellows, and there were a bunch there, and I just didn't end up playing them. But this deck, is kind of really tailored into that kind of a meta. It's got main deck scanning officers, and just ways to kind of like interfere with their plan and kind of rush them and kind of close out the game. This list is closely based on Falafel's deck from the Bothan network. The only real difference here is I've moved. He was running 2 Tranquility main board. He was running 1 less takedown and 1 less General Recon. So I kind of just moved it over to the sideboard. I wasn't sure how many people were playing a blue or would be playing like heavy control, I guess I should say, instead of just blue. How many of those decks would be there? Did not really see any of those last time, and I wasn't expecting like a whole lot, and plus it's in the sideboard, so you can just like pull it out and scoop if you think you're being out controlled. The base version of this deck I have practiced a lot without the sideboard changes, and it does very well into Cad Bane blue. So I wasn't out particularly concerned about that either, just because you've got the U-Wings, you've got the Lukes, and you can kind of out damage them from there. It also has main deck answers to Anakin Blue, another deck that I did not see the whole PQ either, which is kind of like the reason you're running Yodas and the Jedi lightsabers here. You could make a case for General's Blades to kind of be able to ram into your Luke sooner, but Jedi lightsaber allows Yoda to kill like an Anakin on the flip turn, so that's kind of like why those cards are in there. So this deck was really kind of tailored exactly into stuff that I did not see or like happen to run into in this in the meta at that weekend. So you just do the best you can, try to go into like what you expect to see. So I'll go into the first match here in a second. We'll go, let's see if we can flip from here. Okay, just trying to see if my okay, arrow keys will be working. So first one was a Qi'ra ECL on Energy Conversion Lab. So kind of like, I played this list a fair bit on my channel, right? When it was kind of new, the new thing. So what happened to me, I went 0-2. You can kind of see, I'll just like list the stuff there at the bottom. It's hard. This matchup is much more rough than Krennic, really, because the shields that Qi'ra puts onto stuff in an Obi-Wan deck, you're trying to aim for kind of like value trades, and the shields that she puts onto stuff kind of like prevent all of your trades. So you're kind of having to try and play around that. As you're going forward. The first game, they were able to ECL a Gideon Hask out, then like Overwhelming Barrage, kind of like kill my Obi-Wan on my deploy turn. And if they get ramp, I think kind of like a weakness of Obi-Wan green in those kinds of decks, like even like Quinlan green into villain green, is that like if they can outramp you, whether that's with their super laser techs or resupply or both, or if they're in Bossk green and they're able to get price on your head, those kinds of things, especially like a double one off of a Bossk deploy, then they really can just like completely outrace you, because they'll get to like a reinforcement walker, and once they stick a reinforcement walker, you can't even Luke those, right? Because they're like 6/9s, so you kind of have to save your Fel the Dragons for them, but they've also got top end like the Avengers and things like that. So we didn't get up to that point. They were able to kind of like out damage me as we were, going through the match. The second round, it was a bit closer. We got to the mid game, and then they kind of, I think, like mauled my Obi-Wan deploy or something again, though. And but I remember specifically that I had drawn 3 Recons off the top, like the last 2 turns, which was, I mean, just like too late to really do anything by that point, because they had already, flipped and stuff like, and had like all of their board out, and there was not really like that much I could do against Krennic. Again, like you've got Yoda, you can give a lightsaber to Yoda or Kanan or anything like that, and then you can just kind of like run into Krennic. Especially if you've ramped and they haven't ramped, you can be pretty well prepared for that matchup. But even just like running like a regional governor into Krennic and then like ECLing an Ayla into him to kill him. Qi'ra, I mean, like they don't care kind of if you kill Qi'ra or not. I think the overwhelming barrage that kind of wiped me the first time was on like a devastating gunship, and I just didn't have an answer. The second game I did deploy like U-Wing, and I was looking for a regional governor off the top to name a barrage, but really, I mean, I whiffed and just kind of didn't pull through there. Next match, I was up against the original person's that I played the first round, their brother, who was on Sabine ECL. So I won the first match there. I was able to put on a lot of early game pressure, getting out a Yoda, and then just like restoring enough. Putting like, I got the equipment out. Their Sabine flip, I was able to kind of kill Sabine on the Sabine flip, and then like they didn't have enough gas to kind of finish from there. The other 2 games, they were able to either Poe Dameron me or Ayla me or Wrecker me and completely kill Obi-Wan on the flip. I was trying to get him behind Riken and put some like experience on him. I had so they won those two matches. I was aiming to because like, if you can't stabilize, like there's just some lines in Sabine that are so quick, so fast that it's hard to stabilize from them. Like if they go A wing into wing leader, it's just like rough, and then they can completely go the space lane. And even we've got like Bright Hopes and Obi-Wan, but those are really really slow. Uh, I think like their primary use is sometimes like bouncing regional governor like back to your hand and then like naming something else, so you can play like regional governor turn one, name a resupply, play your Bright Hope later in the game, bounce it back, then name like overwhelming barrage or something like that. But I had my space cards, but like coming out on 4, like by the time you play that, the Green Squadron A wing, if they've like wing leadered and then done something else, I mean they just start to like snowball to the point where even if you play it, they're just going to kill it, and then they're just going to keep hitting your base anyway, and you don't want to spend like your whole turn addressing like one car like with a takedown or something like that, because then they've still got all those units on board and are still hitting you, and then they deploy Sabine, and then they put a dark saber on her. So if there's any like main major meta deck that I think Obi-Wan ECL, like at least this version in the original list by Falafel, like has a bit of a rough time into, I think Falafel lost 0-2 in when they were in the top cut against maybe like Frank from Bothan Network. But I mean, I can see why. The deck is not that great into Sabine, and if there's any like main meta deck that it is just not that good into, it is Sabine. It does great into Django, it does great into Cad Bane, it does great into Han Yellow. Sabine is a bit of a weak point for it. And it's just like I said, hard to come back, especially when they get like really explosive specific plays. You just it's hard to address that. So I've been thinking, and I can maybe go into this later at the end, because if there's a match that deck I think that Obi-Wan needs to shore up a little bit, it's probably this one. Maybe Concord Dawn Interceptors, but even then like a wing leadered A-Wing still kills it and still sticks around, so because they'll just have like 1 health left at that point. So I'm not sure. And there's that 3-cost arc that you can ambush out into the A-Wing, which I mean I think is the play there. Honestly, if you think they're going to be like lane dodging you, is using Timely or maybe even ECL to get rid of that A-Wing. But it's just difficult. I know the very last game we were on like round 3, and I played a regional governor and I named Poe. But I should have named Wrecker. They killed me with a Wrecker, but they had a dark saber in hand too, so it's not like exactly like this list, which is on the General's Blades. But it's like you name the Wrecker, they play the dark saber. You name the dark saber, they play the Wrecker. It's so explosive. Those last rounds. Anyway, well, I think we'll go on to match number 3. So here we are, at least currently, if we're keeping track, I am 0-2 at this point. So not feeling super hot. We've also gone three matches, so that we went pretty close to the end there, which will become pertinent later as far as that match time kind of goes. Next, I'm playing Palpatine Blue. So this is the reason that the Tranquilities were in the Duluth PQ main deck, specifically, I think, for this kind of a matchup, because of the Vigilances, that kind of a thing. So, but I ended up going 2-0 anyway. We played 2 games and went right up to time, but I won both of them anyway. Really, I got them off of like U-Wing. I knew when to, regional governors are kind of an all-star, and why I think I won like a lot of the matches that I did, because if you're able to, drop them turn 1, name the resupply or the super laser tech, but again, you kind of like are trying to guess what they're holding. But right, like knowing when to pull that and then bounce it and then name something else really kept them off. I know that I stopped them from using vigilance for large sections of the second game, and I think also in the first game. I was knew when to hold cards. I think it helps, and my advice would be if you haven't played as this kind of a deck, to play from that deck, right? So that you kind of like know what they're doing. I held, like I would drop a Luke and maybe one other card and be hitting, till they removed it. Then I would play like a U-Wing, put back on the board. They would super laser blast, but I would be holding like 3 to 4 units in hand and then slowly drop them, and just kind of like whittle them down through attrition that way, which is how I was able to win game 1. I did slot in, I did not slot in the Tranquilities round 2. They were on a list that was a little bit different again than this one. I've just pulled the top PQ lists for each of these leaders, just like as an example. They had more units, kind of like more unit based, I think. They were on clones, and we went down. They decked me, like completely decked me. I had a Luke on board, and they were at like 22 health. And because they were on so many units, I actually sided in choose sides, and I gave them my Bright Hope and stole their clone, and their clone was cloning my Luke, and then I was able to win the game that way, even on a completely empty deck. But I think I had only had like maybe like 6 or 7 damage on my base at that point. They scooped. We were down to the last 5 minutes or so, so again, like kind of like right up until time. And then kind of, trying to like de-sideboard really quick and run into your next match. So this is the first one that I won. So we'll go into the next one here. Okay, so third match. This was against Casey, who I played against in the original Kansas City PQ. He was on Palp Blue that time, and I was on Han Blue, and is a pretty good matchup for Han Blue. I think I had beaten him 2-0, or maybe it was 2-1. I had the opposite experience this time. I knew that this was a pretty hard deck to go into. But my first turn scanning officer, they do again, like scanning officers are great into some decks. I did have a first turn scanning officer into this deck, and this deck plays stuff like Sabine's. I think his list actually had like a hot shot blaster, and I was able to like tap down, completely like nerf his turn 1 play, so he just had to claim, which kind of put him like on the back foot for the whole match. And then I was able to like land like a regional governor, put some like stuff on her, and like start hitting for like quite a bit. I don't know if I put a lightsaber, might have been forced to because of a bad draw, but if you can put a lot of early damage on their base, even when they have their Palp flip, the Obi-Wan's heal can kind of mess with their Palp flip a little bit, since he's trying to like steal your Lukes. Obi-Wan can like heal your single damage off, so the ability of the ping is nerfed a little bit. Now the thing is, this new starship, this elite P-38 starfighter, is kind of gets around that. So these 3 cards are the thing to watch out for in this matchup, because the starship puts 1, Palpatine sacrifice puts another 2, so then you go up to like 3 on something. So if you got like your Luke out, they play one of these, they sack it, they put 3 damage on it, and you just can't heal enough. Sometimes you can plan your Obi-Wan flip to heal 2, because he can heal, then flip, then heal another one off of his attack. But those starfighters are really, 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 really rough. I knew that this was kind of like one of the worst matchups going into it, so I was a little surprised to be able to win the first one. Especially with the change of hearts. I mean, they just like take your Lukes, sacrifice your Lukes. I mean, kind of like looking for your U-Wings to kind of like flood, and also to have just like put enough early board pressure on them, that they like have to flip Palpatine without like stealing a Luke. Basically, you're trying to like put so much pressure on them that it like forces their flip, and they have to take like a Kanan Jarrus or something instead, which is what happened game number 1. Games 2 and 3, they were really able. I mean, they got 2 change of hearts. I can specifically remember 2 change of hearts game 2, 2 change of hearts game 3. I think I was able to kind of deal with their walkers and their devastators, but you know, once they started hitting me with my own stuff, sacrificing it, it was hard for me to come back from that. And they were kind of able to like lock me out from there and just kind of like hit me. I think maybe a devastator did beat me one game. But hard, especially like after the sideboard, because they can, you know, I think they brought in all three of these Palpatine's returns, and I definitely saw a few of those, and it just makes it that much harder to kind of like outlast them, because their top end is a little bit better than Obi-Wan on ECL. They can just like hit up a bit higher, especially once the sideboard goes in. So you're really kind of counting on winning game number one if you're trying to beat this deck as Obi-Wan. So at this point we are at 1 win, 3 losses. So we'll go forward into the next one. So this list actually is against the Kylo. Let's see, can we go? Okay, looks like it. Okay. Man, I'm having some trouble there. I think we should be on the right thing. Had a little bit of input delay when I was trying to switch between there and just flipping by. But this next list, I went up against a Kylo yellow list. It wasn't Jeddah City. I believe they were on gosh, the new yellow base. I don't know off the top of my head. The one that gives him a power bonus. I really still think maybe if you're going for one, Jeddah City might be the one to go with. Really because of, you know, like into lists like this Obi-Wan list where you can turn some of their sentinels into give them like -4, -0, right? Like if Obi-Wan drops a Recon, you can use a Jeddah City and kind of get rid of it. Although it doesn't apply to Obi-Wan because it's only non-leaders, so it's kind of 50-50. But a list that's near and dear to my heart, one of my most watched videos, I think, is playing this list on a Qi'ra. I really love this list. It's really fun. I'm not sure. It was kind of rough to run even back in the Shadows of the Galaxy meta. Out of like hundreds of games, I think like my win ratio ended up being, you know, maybe like around 65, maybe something like that. And I was like really familiar with the list. It's just hard to hit up into stuff, and decks became like pretty resilient. But you can also have, and this is where I like had a loss to the list, is you can have like a miracle hand and just like completely steamroll the person, but it's just like really swingy, because you can just like vomit out your entire hand and then play Kylo and then there's nothing they can do, and which is still the case sometimes. Against Obi-Wan though, you can like even like in an emergency ECL like a Yoda into like a stormtrooper or things like that to be able to heal, which I did end up doing. And there's also Timely's main deck, so like Timely Intervention on a Kanan, and Kanan Jarrus will kill Kylo Ren just on an ECL by himself. And Kylo Ren, yeah, it's just rough. And I don't mean that like as a critique of the Kylo list in particular, but just like heroic green blue is just very resilient, and there's lots of main deck. It's just like hard for them to come back from that, especially like you drop a Luke and it's basically game over. They don't have a way to deal with that really. So they didn't draw the kind of miracle hand the other 2 games, and we were kind of able to stop them there. The Obi-Wan deploy is also very like impactful in that match because Kylo will die into Obi if he swings, unless you put a jetpack on him. He did try to do that round number 3, but I think I had a takedown and I just used takedown on Kylo Ren. Just another poor kind of, yeah, because there's 3 main deck takedowns, mainly to deal with the stuff that you see in Han, Tex, DJs, but also Sabine's, but also works into Kylo. So even if they manage to shield him or something like that, if you have a takedown, it's just kind of, you basically kind of end up skipping their turn, kind of like nerfing that. But I think he was also a little maybe I don't know what the word would be. I think he wasn't winning that much that day. It was a younger player, if I didn't say so at the start of it, maybe like a teenager, and kind of just yeah, seemed kind of sad most of the time. Unfortunately, I think him and his father left after that. But you know, we'll go on from there. So next match. I'm not gonna keep clicking so I don't have the same trouble as last time. So finally we get to this point. We are in match number 6, and we finally get one of the decks that I've been aiming to go up against. I went 2-0 against this list. I think Quinlan has a nice matchup into this, or not Quinlan, Obi-Wan has a nice matchup into Quinlan because he nerfs the ping like a lot of these Tarkin Town decks, except probably Rey. He does very well into. And yeah, it's just pretty smooth. The match was really smooth. I never felt behind. I had enough heal on board. They really couldn't do very much. I'd get like a Yoda out with a lightsaber. I'd get a Kanan out with a lightsaber. I'd get Obi-Wan out. And then I had like a nice curve. It would go Ayla into Riken into Luke. Or I'd pull a Luke off of a U-Wing, and there's really like not that much they could do at that point. They did have Han Solos, and if you're playing against this list and you are Obi-Wan, Han Solo is the thing to look out for, because with the Quinlan ping, Han Solo will kill a Luke, and his shoot first ability, yeah, will kill a Luke. So, and then they usually also tend to have like hot shot blasters in the resource row, and a hot shot blaster on a Han Solo will also kill a Luke, and then he'll stay around. So, I have lost this matchup before, and it is primarily to Mr. Han Solo right there. Although Poe Dameron can also do a number on Luke if he sticks around too. So it's kind of like who has initiative and when, and are you able to have the Han Solo? And if you don't have the Han Solo, then kind of out of luck. But the Obi-Wan deck, I mean, like it goes fair enough, like a little bit higher than this list. So like in a similar way to like how Palpatine Yellow kind of has a little bit higher ceiling and can kind of like outlast, and then like because of that high ceiling kind of beat an Obi Green deck. I think Obi-Wan Green has a little bit of a higher ceiling than Quinlan, and if you can stick around and get off a little bit of restore and get a Luke out or something, or chain your Lukes together, maybe they kill one. I remember that happened in one of these matches. I think able to kill one with a hot shot on a Han Solo, but then I played a U-Wing, got another Luke, killed that Han Solo, and then they had like no board, and there wasn't that anything else they could really do from that point. Bright Hopes are also feel a little bit better into this list because they kind of make it hard for Falcon to get through, and just because this list isn't really running wing leaders in the way that Sabine, like the Rebel package in Sabine is, I think some of those cards are like a little bit better into this list than they are into Sabine. So we'll go into the next match here. Final match. Okay, so I won that one, so we ended up 4-3. Went 2-1 into Bossk Green. This is definitely not a easy matchup by any stretch of the imagination. I'd say it's maybe 50-50. I won one of the games by getting out a regional governor, sticking a Jedi lightsaber on her because I did not have any other plays, and just like hitting the base early and often. I think I played a multiple, like, trying to push damage, right? So this deck, I mean, like getting rid of those scanning officers because you don't need them into this matchup, and then just trying to like hammer the base as quickly as you can, because if you can do 4 damage starting turn 2 and then putting out a lot more damage on other stuff, you are pretty good. So yeah, I'm trying to think of the game that they won. The round 1, I put out like a lot of early damage. I did not have a regional governor out, but I did try and spam the board. I had a good curve, the Ayla to the Riken to the Luke, the Obi deploy. Each of these games I killed Bossk on deploy, whether that was with like an equipped unit, or that was like could just like run into him as soon as he came out, or that kind of thing. I think one of the games I ECL'd a scanning officer into him because he had 4 health. I think they killed my Kanan Jarrus with him or something, and then I just ECL'd the scanning officer. But trying to make it so that they can't claim a ton of bounties at once, and they weren't really able to ping because of Obi-Wan. So it does make that part of the matchup a little bit easier. They did get a Crate Dragon out game 1, but like I said, I had the Ayla, I had the Riken, I had the Luke, I had Obi-Wan out. I think they had like 23 damage on their base, and I maybe just had like maybe 8, maybe 11, not a lot. And I mean, I could just like leave what I had on board and get them. They beat me second round. They got a Crate Dragon out. I think they got double ramp. I got ahead, and like I mentioned in the Qi'ra discussion, that's kind of like what you have to watch out for when you're playing against these green-black ramp decks. Is like, are they gonna double ramp you either like with Bossk, or I mean like even one ramp, because Obi-Wan deploys on 6, and if you're not ramping, I mean it's good if you can. If they ramp and then you ramp, kind of moot, but even then it's not that great because Bossk deploys on 5, which is a whole, again, like early right, comparatively, and 6 is kind of late, really, and I think that's kind of maybe again like one of the larger downsides of playing him instead of something like Quinlan Obi-Wan, because yeah, he comes out a whole turn late, and they're a whole turn ahead of you and have had a leader out. And if they ramp or double ramp and you don't, they're just like way ahead of you at that point. And as soon as you play him, right, like if they have a barrage and they've got, a unit that has 5 power out, like they've got Darth Vader, I mean, they just barrage him and then kill him, right, like immediately. So that can be rough. They got out that Crate Dragon real early, and I didn't have anything. The third match, I had slotted in my Rivals Falls and my Fell the Dragons and stuff, which were already in the sideboard game too. But I did have a Fell the Dragon to answer their Crate Dragon when they played it, and I had a full board again. And I remember that being the match that I had equipped my Regional Governor with a lightsaber, and then I think like Quinlan with a lightsaber after that, or not Quinlan, Kanan Jarrus. And it was just like hitting them for quite a bit. I mean, it's like 11 at that point, like, plus Obi-Wan coming out. And they really don't have like a lot of ways to get rid of like the upgrades. So another thing to be watching out for too, and I would say, to watch out, to look for, if you have it into these kinds of matchups, is do you have those upgrades, because they really don't have a good way to do anything about them. And you can heal. I remember they were trying to ping my Regional Governor, and I kept being able to heal her right exactly out of range of Force Chokes, because like I knew they had Force Chokes or like had the potential to Force Choke. So again, like knowing the deck in and out, Regional Governor, again, I would say like all-star of the day for me in most of my games and my lists. But knowing like when to, like you can heal and keep them like safe, and they don't have bounce because they're not in yellow, so you don't have to worry about that happening. So against these decks, I think you really want to be putting like a lot of onboard pressure, so that you don't get into the late game. You don't have to like worry about these reinforcement walkers, right? Like you want them to be on like 23 by the time they like get one out or something, and you can do that by putting out like experience on stuff with Riken or lightsabers and like that kind of a thing. But I'll go back to the original list and give some final thoughts before we leave. All right, we'll give some overall thoughts here as far as going forward is concerned. I am attending another PQ. I don't know if I will run this list, if I'll make some adjustments. I was playing quite a bit of Cad Bane before he became quite so everywhere as he is right now, I guess. I think the strength of this deck is that, I mean, really not very many people have played against it, so people make some mistakes. But beyond that, I think it's very good into broad field, really. It has answers for Anakin Blue through the lightsabers, whether they're on Yoda, whether they're on Kanan, whether they're on your Obi-Wan because you've got him out a turn early because you've got a resupply. like Ayla. I mean, plenty of answers into Anakin Blue. Anakin Blue is a common deck. I think it's very good into Han Yellow. It is honestly because of the scanning officers and the bounce with the Bright Hopes being able to name what you need with the regional governor, which I did a fair amount, and rename stuff, but you can also bounce the scanning officer and kind of really like mess with some of their turns and you're ramping and they're not, or they are but they have card disadvantage. I mean, it's very good into Han Yellow is all I'll say. So good into that deck, good into Django because of the Aether sprites. Something I neglected to mention in the Pout Blue deck is if you save your energy conversion lab and you ECL your Aether sprite into it doesn't kill all starships, but it does kill stuff like Relentless, Constantine's Folly, because it has the Wind Played to deal 2, on attack to do 2, and it does 4 by itself. So it kills all of those 8 health capital ships that they might be running, and you can ECL it into stuff like that too. But also good into Django, because you're probably killing, if not 2, sometimes 3 of their space units once you get up to Aether Sprite, and you should be healing fine with Yoda on the ground. You know, put a lightsaber on him if you have to, but really it is kind of hard to lose against Django with this list, kind of hard to lose against Han Yellow. Cad Bane, because, I mean, the capture and stuff, but even then, you've got Fel the Dragon's main board. You can run a regional governor into Cad Bane and then ambush him with like Ayla. You can do like so many different things. It's a little bit trickier because of the they can keep a lot more of your board off with McClunkies, but really I think very good into Cad Bane as well. And even like Quinlan, the deck that I went 2-0 against earlier. So, I mean, like, if those are the decks you're looking for, if those are the decks that you think will be at the PQs that you'll be playing at, I think this is a good deck into them. Like I said earlier, I think the largest weakness is that the Sabine matchup is not a little bit more locked in because you've got all of these things that are answering all of those other decks. But it's always just a trade-off. I mean, like, you can switch things into this list that would be better into Sabine, but then you're taking out some other things. So any changes that I make, I mean, it's kind of like looking for like what can maintain that into different matchups, right? Because you don't want to trade that off. I think maybe there's room for Concord Dawn Interceptors. Maybe over these arcs. I know these arcs, they're 3/4s, and they're good for ambushing into A-Wings if you think they're going to put a wing leader and try and arena dodge you. But I think Concord Dawn is also playable there. These, though, are good for onboard pressure. So I've been kind of mulling over a new list without the scanning officers, because the scanning officers helped me in, maybe like one of the matchups out of the 7 that I played, right? I mean, like, if you don't face Han Yellow, the scanning officers are really not very good by themselves, right? Or a deck that, I mean, like Hondo, right? I mean, this deck is good into Hondo Green if you find like an off meta deck. But if you don't, then like maybe something like Queel's better. And if you're running Queel, then maybe you are switching your lightsabers for Jedi General's Blades instead of these lightsabers, but then again you're kind of like trading that off for being a little less good into Anakin Blue. But if you're doing that, you can also maybe replace these arcs with a Hu Yang, because then you can draw Hu Yang and the lightsabers off of Queel. You know, so I've been kind of mulling over those kinds of changes, but again, it's just like a trade-off. I mean, you don't know what you're going to face, and you can really only plan for what you think the most likely stuff will be. You can't tell the future and like what you're going to go into. Honestly, I think I would have gone at least like 5-2 if I had faced one Han deck or better than that if I face multiple Han decks, just because this list is very good into those. I just didn't, so that's kind of just how it shakes out. So if you've got like any ideas, maybe you've been playing this list, I'd love to talk it over with you. Anything like that. If you want advice, I know I didn't go. I was just kind of working off my memory, going over. I had written them down contemporaneously. I was kind of keeping people in a Discord updated about the matches as I was playing them. So just kind of like going over them from there. But like I said, I'll be thinking this over during the week. I've got 2 store showdowns too that I'm going to go to. I don't know if I'll run this list or not. Maybe I'll do something else. I've been playing around with some Yoda lists. I'm trying to, You're My Only Hope. So like a Yoda yellow list, which also has like now there are 2 of them in there trying to do lots of cheating out, trying to get like Luke out as many different ways as possible. Maybe I'll be running that list, just like other kinds of fun things. Maybe back to Han 2 Blue, just because I really love that deck, even though in the current Tarkin Town meta it's had a little bit of a rough spot, but near and dear to my heart. I love that list. It's just like really fun. But maybe I'll try and see if there's more of a zoo board spam list that could be made, putting a lot of units out. Other than that, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I would say. These regional governors, though, are really kind of like, may seem innocuous at first, but they're really kind of like what helps the deck work as well as it can when it can. Because knowing what to name, when to name it, really it can't be overstated, like how good that can be in the matches. And it's got a lot of health, and they have to, especially against stuff where they're going to be pushing damage on your board, but you can lock them out, because then they have to decide if they're going to try and get rid of your governor, if they're going to be attacking your base. And that's a good spot to put a lot of them in, because it kind of puts them in a rough situation while they're trying to deal with that. You can be establishing your board state and healing up and getting ready to kind of get into the late game where this deck really shines. But other than that, like I said, let me know if you you think you're wanting to run a list like this, what you think would be good trades, good swaps, anything like that. I'm happy to talk with anyone about that. I had a maybe comment or 2 on my last video about like the Obi-Wan unit, why that one's not on the list, the 6 cost one from Spark, and home ones. Really, I think like home runs would be runnable if you were not on U-Wing, maybe, because U-Wing doesn't pull them. And really, if I was going to run a ship like that, I would probably just put these Tranquilities back in, because they're 7 cost and you can just pull them off of U-Wing also. Unless you're going to go down U-Wings. But again, I mean, I think you could replace the U-Wings with the home ones. You just have a little bit of a different deck. But I mean, that might be better for a certain meta. I'm a little less sure though about Obi-Wan, the 6 cost, just because I think at 6 you want to be using Timely on Ayla, or smuggling Timely on a Kanan, or just ECLing a Rican, because like the 6 cost is a little rough, because it kind of is like fighting with the Rican slot. And really, like on 6, sometimes I'm playing like a lightsaber in a Republic arc, or you're playing like, a smaller unit in a Kanan, right? Like a Marine in a Kanan. And especially like in those decks that try like 1-for-1 remove you, I don't think you want to go like up more like on 6 cost probably, just because like those control matchups, you kind of need to have a lot of low cost things to spam. And it's also like almost a non-bow with Obi-Wan leader and the Obi-Wan unit, 6 cost unit, just because you can drop the Obi-Wan unit. It's a lot better in Luke, I think, right? Because you can put all the experience on Luke, and Obi-Wan is protecting Luke. But Obi-Wan leader has Sentinel too, and I mean, like when you try and play it, they're just gonna kill Obi-Wan leader and then leave your Obi-Wan unit, and then probably leave you on an empty board or something like that, and then they'll kill Obi-Wan and you won't have anything to put the experience on. But I mean, like maybe because you'd have like a Yoda out or a Kanan behind there, but it seems like less strong to me. And Riken getting the double trigger, you know, because of the ambush and being able to give more, like 2 experience to Obi-Wan. And then if he sits there, keep giving more and more and more. Really, that stuff helped me out quite a bit in my like Quinlan matchup. And the matches that I did win, like if you can get Riken out behind Obi-Wan and be hitting for 5 and then giving Obi-Wan the experience and then hitting with Obi-Wan, really, if you do that once, you know, that's probably quite a bit of damage on the base, right? If it's ECL, that's 6 from Obi-Wan, 5 from the Riken, that's 11. And if you keep doing that, I mean, they're just dead, right? So it's something that they kind of like have to answer. And when I was playing that Palpatine Yellow, I mean, like they had to steal my Riken because they were just going to die from that, and did end up losing anyway, like in that first matchup, right? But I mean, you're in those kinds of matchups, that's what you're trying to force, and that kind of a thing like isn't really possible with the Obi-Wan unit, unless you're going like in a much more kind of control oriented direction. You know, maybe like if you're playing like a double blue Obi-Wan or something like that. But anyway, like I said, I think that'll be it for now. If you got any feedback or you see something that I'm missing or anything like that, let me know. I really had fun with this deck. Like I said, I think it's good into an open field, especially if you don't know what's going to be there. It's good into a lot of the top placing decks. If you're just like looking at percentiles and you kind of like don't know what might be there because you're traveling to an event or something like that, I think it's pretty good into an open field. But does have its weaknesses. Obviously, nothing is good into every single thing. But anyway, that'll be it for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later. Goodbye.